Cardinal Raymond Burke is not just another name within the Catholic Church. He's the guy Pope Francis didn't want near him. He was a critic, he was a traditionalist, and now he's in the news again following the Pope's death. And what he's just dropped has left people in awe. For years, Burke was at odds with Francis over nearly everything. Whether LGBTQ rights or women in the church, he always was pushing back. Francis even removed him from his Vatican apartment. But since Pope Francis's passing, Burke has finally spoken out. And what he admitted, no one expected. Let's explore his words that stunned the faithful and what they may imply next. From Cardinal Burke's early days, a farm boy with a grand dream, Raymond Leo Burke was born on June 30th, 1948 in Richland Center, Wisconsin. He was the youngest among 6 siblings from an Irish Catholic family. His parents, Thomas and Marie Burke, brought their children up on a peaceful dairy farm. Life was uncomplicated and religion was never out of sight. But then, when Raymond was in 2nd grade, his father was diagnosed with brain cancer. As Thomas Burke's life declined, a local priest would come to administer communion to him. Those visits had a powerful effect on young Raymond. He felt something profoundly powerful in the priest's presence, and that seeded his future. Burke determined early on that he would be a priest. In 1962, he entered the Holy Cross Seminary in La Crosse, Wisconsin, at age 14. It was a giant leap for a boy his age, but his faith was important to him. Many years down the line, Burke left Wisconsin to pursue his education at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. He pursued studies in philosophy and graduated with a bachelor's as well as a master's degree. Later, he proceeded to Rome to pursue further studies at the renowned Pontifical Gregorian University. There he studied theology while residing at the Pontifical North American College, which was a center that prepared many future bishops and cardinals. Indeed, some of his classmates became top church officials, including Cardinals Blas Kupik and James Harvey. But the most significant moment was in 1975, when he became a priest at St. Peter's Basilica by Pope Paul V. It was a day of pride for a Wisconsin farm boy and just the start of a long church journey from parish top Vatican lawyer priest to top Vatican lawyer. Burke returned to La Crosse after his ordination. He was instructed to work at the Cathedral of St. Joseph the Workman and also to teach religion at a diocesan high school. But in 1980, his course diverted again. He was instructed to return to Rome to study canon law, the Catholic Church's system of laws. Burke wasn't thrilled about it at first. He felt lost and uninspired. But that all changed when an older priest recognized how depressed he was and took him in as a protege. That encouragement turned things around. Burke said later that he got addicted to canon law. He eventually obtained a doctorate and was one of the church's leading authorities in the subject. When he returned to the U.S., he assumed additional responsibility. He became the moderator of the Curia and vice-chancellor of the Diocese of La Crosse. He was then given a prominent position by Pope John Paul II in 1989. Burke was appointed the first American defender of the bond at the Apostolic Signatura, the church's de facto highest court. It was a major event, and it illustrated that Burke was a priest but more. He was a rising star in the world of the Vatican legal system. Year after year, Burke's power continued to increase. In 1995, he became Bishop of the Diocese of La Crosse, and in 2004 he was elevated to Archbishop of St. Louis. During his years in office, Burke established himself as a conservative and strict leader. He frequently spoke out for the traditional Catholic doctrines and commonly said the old Latin Mass. Burke's positions were standouts, even among other bishops. He ardently defended church doctrine concerning marriage, abortion, and the Eucharist. He frequently stated that politicians who were pro-abortion, such as John Kerry or Joe Biden, should not be given communion. This stringent position earned him the approval of conservative Catholics. But controversy came with it, the Vatican years and widening rift. Pope Benedict XVI recalled Burke in 2008. This time he appointed him prefect of the Supreme Tribunal of the Apostolic Signatura, the same court that employed him before. 2 years later, Benedict also elevated him to cardinal rank. This was the peak of Burke's power within the church. He was respected, influential, and deeply connected to the conservative base of the Vatican. But things started changing when Pope Francis was elected in 2013. Burke and Francis had drastically different opinions. Francis thought the church should be more open and inclusive. He famously declared regarding gay people, "Who am I to judge?" and even advocated for evolution, declaring that it wasn't against religion. Burke disagreed. He fought against any attempts to ease the church's position on such topics as LGBTQ rights, divorce, or communion protocols. He felt that the church should stand strong. In one interview, he stated, "We can never speak enough of abortion or of marriage between one man and one woman." Tensions mounted rapidly. In December of 2013, Francis stripped Burke of his membership on the Congregation of Bishops, an organization that assists the Pope in selecting new bishops. That was a clear indication of their conflict. The coup de grace came in 2014. During a Vatican conference on the family, a document recommended the church acknowledge some positive attributes in gay relationships. Burke was enraged. He exclaimed, "There is a strong sense that the church is like a ship without a rudder." That exchange moved quickly and made headlines around the globe. Shortly thereafter, Pope Francis stripped Burke of his #1 legal post. Instead, he appointed him to a more symbolic role as patron of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Francis declared this action wasn't punishment, but to many people it seemed so, a cardinal in the spotlight once again. Even after losing his Vatican post, Burke did not disappear. He remained outspoken. He continued to resist what he perceived as sinister alterations in the church. And for some, he became the unofficial head of conservative Catholics. He also continued to make headlines. In recent years, he made uncompromising statements against pandemic vaccines and public health measures. His positions did not find favor with the Vatican or with many Catholics who approved of Pope Francis's method. Despite the criticism, Burke remained resolute in his convictions. He continued to be critical of the Pope's attempts to modernize the church. At one time, he even indicated there may come a time when it would be proper to formally correct the Pope, an idea that stunned many individuals in the Catholic world. But now, with the death of Pope Francis and Burke still going strong at age 76, folks are looking at him again. Might he be the first American pope? He does have his contingent. And being one of the most recognized conservative voices within the church, he's bound to be in the mix. Burke's path from a small Wisconsin dairy farm to the top echelons of the Vatican is one of drama, piety, and schism. And now, with his recent public confession following Francis's passing, the focus is once again firmly on him like never before. What he has said has left many at a loss for words. When Pope Francis spurned Burke in 2014, Cardinal Raymond Burke received one of the largest setbacks to his career. Pope Francis stripped him of almost all his responsibilities, giving him a merely ceremonial role to fill. It came after Burke attempted to sack a senior official for authorizing the purchase of condoms for individuals in Burma. It was something the Pope had not approved. Francis then sent another person, a special envoy, to perform Burke's duty at the Order of Malta. Burke was reported to have been de facto suspended. Though not technically a punishment, it was obvious he was no longer in charge. It was another indication of how far apart Burke and Francis had grown. Even amidst the tension with the Pope, Burke continued to criticize many things. The Church considers human sexuality a gift to be valued. In assuming our humanity, he tended to concentrate on issues within the Church. One of them was the abuse scandal. Burke denounced priests who engaged in abuse vigorously, but rather than focusing solely on the individuals, he attributed deeper causes. In 2015, he identified the actual issue as radical feminism, which attacked the Church and society since the 1960s. Several years later, in 2019, Burke intensified his opinions. Together with German Cardinal Walter Brandmüller, he asserted the primary cause of the abuse crisis was the homosexual agenda plague. According to Burke, most abuser priests were feminized and were confused about their sexual identity. These words created gigantic controversy. But for Burke, they demonstrated his conviction that the Church had lost its traditional foundations, and his conflict with the Pope was not finished yet. In 2016, Cardinal Burke made a very rare and bold move. He openly contradicted Pope Francis and 3 other conservative cardinals. They submitted an official letter called a dubia, which literally means doubts in Latin. They criticized sections of the Pope's letter named Amoris Laetitia, or the joy of love. This 260-page letter was among Francis's most significant works. There, the Pope declared the Church should be more inviting and kind. He wrote about individuals who felt excluded, particularly divorced and remarried people. The Pope penned, "No one can be condemned forever." According to church law, those who remarried without an annulment were not permitted to receive communion. They were considered to be living in sin. But Francis ventured a gentler way. He seemed to offer that choices could be made between a priest and an individual in secret. This would be done via what is known as the internal forum. Burke and other conservatives did not agree. They wanted straight answers. They felt the Pope's opinions created confusion and uncertainty. That's why they submitted the dubia to request Francis to define his stance plainly. In normal circumstances, a Pope may answer such queries by giving a document called a responsum. But in this instance, Pope Francis didn't make any response. Burke did not yield. Instead, he cautioned that if the Pope did not respond, it would be a matter of taking a formal act of correction of a grave error. He indicated that he thought even the Pope could be in error and must be corrected. In 2018, he took it even further. He stated, "As a matter of duty, the Pope can be disobeyed." These statements